Discover 10 shocking toxic behaviors you must never accept from family. Transform your life today. Sarah stood in the kitchen, the lingering smell of burnt toast mingling with the sharp scent of simmering spaghetti. Her mind raced as she dodged yet another eye roll from Lily, her rebellious 16-year-old daughter. Dinner was a battlefield, each bite a reminder of the chaos that loomed just beneath the surface of their fragile routine. Balancing her duties as a single mother and a weary nurse, Sarah felt the weight of the world pressing down on her, threatening to crush any small sliver of hope she had left. Why did everything feel like a struggle? It was just dinner, how had she let it become yet another war zone? In the silence that followed, Sarah reflected on her father's biting remarks. She had long dismissed them as gruff love, but suddenly they echoed in her mind, insidious and cruel. Each comment chipped away at her self-esteem, a slow but calculated erosion. He had made her doubt her worth for years, and now the realization sat heavy in her chest. How, after all this time, had she allowed his voice to drown out her own? The anger bubbled beneath her skin, mingling with a deep-seated grief for the version of herself she had surrendered in the name of family loyalty. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the conversation with her mentor replayed in her head, each word a lifeline to a future she longed for, Sarah felt both liberated and terrified. Together, they had teased apart the toxic threads woven into the family fabric, the manipulation she was determined to expose. Just imagining a future where her voice mattered as much as her father's ignited a spark of courage within her. But when the moment came, as family dinners often turned tumultuous, Sarah laid her dreams bare. She revealed her desire to become a nursing educator, to inspire others, and perhaps finally reclaim her sense of self. Her father's reaction was immediate and venomous. He scoffed, belittling her aspirations as foolish dreams of a lost soul. The air thickened as a tempest brewed within the room, the familiar tension threatened to suffocate her. Fear twisted in her gut, but amid it all rose a stubborn, throbbing determination to reclaim her worth. As his contempt spilled forth, flooding the space with toxic memories, Sarah found herself teetering on the edge of something profound. Could she sever the ties of pain that had restrained her for decades? The dread of the unknown mingled with the desperate hope that pulsed through her veins. Then, in that moment of heavy silence, she felt the chains beginning to rattle, the long-held beliefs of duty and familial loyalty jarring against the vibrant call of her own voice. Would she summon the courage to break free? Would she let herself believe that liberation was possible? Both questions hung in the air, a thrilling taunt that left Sarah quaking, caught in a whirlwind of confusion and longing as she faced the daunting unknown that lay ahead. The hours that followed dinner seemed almost ethereal, suspended in the thick fog of unresolved tension. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was teetering on the precipice of a transformation, a moment that demanded her reckoning with the ghosts of her past. She moved through her evening routine mechanically, her hands busy with dishes and laundry while her mind churned with thoughts of rejection and resolve. Her heart raced, not from exhaustion alone but from the stirring determination embedded in her very being. Those derisive comments from her father played on a loop, yet they began to shift each time they returned. They sounded less like claims on her future and more like the shackles she was ready to shed. That night, as Sarah lay on her bed, eyes wide open to the dark, she dared to imagine what it might feel like to finally stand firm in her own truth. With a sigh, she pulled out her journal, the one she had neglected for too long, and flipped through the pages filled with fragmented thoughts and half-formed aspirations. She forced herself to focus on the dream she had mentioned during dinner. Teaching nursing felt like a lighthouse cutting through a fog she had navigated for decades. Pen in hand, she wrote, "I will become a nursing educator. I will empower others with knowledge, breaking the cycle of silence that has stifled me." The words felt electrifying. The more she scribbled, the more the doubts bubbling within her subside, the weight lifting as if each letter pushed against the barriers her father had erected around her. However, with each burst of clarity came a reminder of the risks. The network of familial expectation loomed large, its tendrils reaching into every corner of her life. If she stepped beyond the threshold of their approval, who would be left to catch her when she fell? What if they merely doubled down with their disdain, snuffing out her flickering hope for good? As fear clawed at her resolve, Sarah inhaled deeply, reminding herself of the nights she worked tirelessly to return to school, the hours spent pursuing certifications she had earned. This was her strength, her foundation. Emboldened by reminiscence, a plan began to hatch in the corners of her mind. Perhaps it wouldn't be a clean break, but she could start by working on herself. She envisioned weekly meetings with her mentor, mapping out how to transition her career from the red tape of traditional nursing into the world of teaching. She could study what makes educators successful and wield that knowledge to empower herself. The nights turned into weeks, and with every gathering, whether with students or at home with her daughter, Sarah felt herself standing a little taller, speaking up a little louder. Lily's eye rolls turned into questions. "Mom, why are you so passionate about this?" It was a spark. Yet, her father remained a looming shadow, discontented and ever critical. Each time Sarah felt buoyed by her new aspirations, a call from him would pierce her confidence. Would this cycle of undermining ever end? One afternoon, as she received an email offering a position as a guest lecturer at her local community college, Sarah stood at a crossroads. Accepting it meant she would have to confront her father directly about her new path, and the thought sent a shiver of panic through her. But each decision she made was an act of defiance, a declaration of her autonomy. The idea of sharing her newfound voice with her daughter fashioned an unexpected lightness in her heart. Perhaps just as she trained to become an educator, she might also teach Lily that she, too, was deserving of her own ambitions. The weight of the uncertainty loomed over her, but Sarah understood it wouldn't collapse her newfound sense of self. With a deep breath, she began typing a response to the email. She resolved to not hide her smile when she reached out to her father. Would she be able to stand firm in her decisions as her family bore down upon her? As she clicked send, the question lingered. This was only the beginning, and the confrontation with her father loomed ever closer. The moment of truth was arriving. The days following Sarah's decision felt like a waiting room, filled with potent possibility yet overshadowed by anxiety. Each tick of the clock reminded her of the confession she had yet to make to her father. The courage she had mustered poured through the cracks of her other commitments, weaving doubt into her interactions at home. On a particularly rainy afternoon, she met with her mentor, Patricia, who exuded warmth yet commanded respect, a balance Sarah aspired to embody. Throughout their conversation about teaching strategies and curriculum design, Sarah felt a sense of safety that encouraged her. Patricia's faith in her abilities rekindled her passion. "You had to pave your own way to arrive here, Sarah. That journey is invaluable," Patricia affirmed, her eyes bright with sincerity. Yet, with every shattering affirmation came lingering trepidation. The weight of familial judgment, particularly from her father, tugged at her resolve. What if he dismissed her aspirations as a fleeting whim? What if he turned her fears into reality, a self-fulfilled prophecy of failure? The spiral of hesitance deepened, and Sarah could feel the churning conflict within. Determined to push through her doubts, Sarah began to outline her upcoming lectures. With each lesson plan drafted, her confidence rose, and a fierce sense of purpose replaced the drizzle of anxiety. The thought of igniting young minds filled her with an invigorating energy, yet the dread of her father's critique loomed like a dark cloud. When she closed her laptop, the dichotomy of her feelings churned within her, a dreamer with an anchor dragging her down. At home, she tested the waters, broaching the subject of education with her daughter, Lily. "Can I tell you about something exciting Mom is doing?" she asked with a smile. "Is it about you being a teacher?" "That sounds cool." Lily's enthusiasm was infectious, and hearing it sparked a warmth within Sarah. Yet, the shadow of her father's expectations loomed as she continued, "I'm going to teach nursing students." "It's a big step for me." Lily's eyes widened. "So, you're not just a nurse, you'll teach other nurses?" The pride in her voice brought a sweet sting to Sarah's heart. "That sounds amazing, Mom. You'll be like a hero." Hero. The word echoed in Sarah's mind, tinged with irony. Could she shape lives and, in turn, reshape her own? But as her heart soared, her mother's voice intruded uninvited. "You must be realistic, Sarah. Not everyone can teach. That evening, a message arrived from her father, a predictable wave of condescension lapping at her resolve. I heard about your interview. Don't get your hopes too high. Teaching is not for everyone. Each word struck like a knock against her aspirations, reminding her of the meticulous effort she felt tempted to diminish. Facing the screen, Sarah felt a clash between loyalty and ambition. Her instinct whispered to fight against the silence she had learned to live with, yet the fear of his disapproval weighed heavily on her chest. What was she willing to lose? A trembling determination flickered within her. Could she confront him? The thought sent jagged fragments of anxiety through her. If she voiced her aspirations not just to him but to the universe, would that shake the foundation of their relationship or liberate her from its constraints? While pacing her living room, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window, a subconscious battle radiating in her tense posture. She caught herself trying to prepare for that confrontation, words spilling over in her mind, sentences drafted and erased before they could solidify. Sarah stood before a pivotal moment. She could step forward or retreat into the shadows. Faced with the impending reality of her father's reaction, her hands trembled as she reached for her phone to dial him. Each ring felt like a countdown to a life-altering revelation. She needed to summon the truth from within her and confront the stark dichotomy of love and fear. As the line connected, she braced herself, realizing that the pivotal moment of her life was not in the hands of fate, but in her own unyielding spirit. "Hello, Dad," she spoke with a steadiness that surprised even herself. The moment of truth had finally arrived. As her father's voice crackled over the phone line, an iron fist of tension gripped Sarah's chest. She could almost sense his skepticism permeating through the receiver. "Sarah, is this about your teaching idea again?" he began, a condescending lilt threading through his words. "I hope you know that dreaming is one thing, but reality is another." His dismissive tone sent an icy wave through her. But instead of recoiling, Sarah felt a spark ignite within her, pushing back against years of doubt instilled in her by his words. Here was her moment, the precipice of independence. She could almost hear Patricia's encouragement whispering in her ear. "It is about teaching, Dad," she asserted, her voice steadier than it had ever been. "I'm not just dreaming. I have a teaching interview lined up, and I really believe I can make a difference." "Difference?" he echoed, the disbelief palpable. "Do you truly think you can just walk in and teach nursing students? You spent most of your career as a nurse, not an educator. You're being unrealistic." His words stung, but they also fueled her determination. She shifted on her feet, grounding herself. "I won't be the same nurse who only goes through the motions, Dad. Ultimately, I want to ensure that future nurses are supported by our experiences, both the good and the bad. I'm ready for this challenge." Silence hung heavy on the line. Sarah imagined the wheels turning in her father's mind. Could he sense the shift? She was no longer that girl plagued by insecurity, she was carving a path for herself, irrespective of his opinions. "I've spoken with my mentor," she continued, boldness rising within her. "Patricia believes in my potential. She sees what I can offer." The words resonated with strength, catching her father off guard. "Patricia?" he scoffed. "You should remember, she is not the only voice that matters," he retorted, attempting to reassert his authority. There it was again, the effort to anchor her in the familiar hesitation, to convince her to conform. "I know she isn't," Sarah fired back. "But I need to assert my own worth. I want this for me, not just for you or anyone else. It's not just an ambition, it's a calling." She couldn't dismiss the anxiety twisting within her, yet with it came relentless clarity. If she could dispel this suffocating shadow, then maybe she could release years of feeling chained to expectations that were never her own. "What if I fail?" The thought intruded, a persistent whisper taunting in the back of her mind. But Sarah quelled it with resolve. The mere fact that she was willing to confront her father was evidence of her growth. "Dad, I realize you have your doubts, but I'm stepping into this uncertainty with courage. I'm ready to challenge myself to grow beyond what you think I can handle." "I'm telling you this for your own good," he insisted, frustration evident in his tone. Yet, the insistence felt diminished in the wake of her assertion. Maybe I need to hear this from myself too, she replied gently. Growing pains are part of moving forward. I have to try. And to do that, I need you to trust me, even if it scares you. Pause. For a moment, she thought she could feel her heart beating in time with the static from the line. So, you really believe you can do this? His voice softened, curiosity edging out condemnation. Yes. I really do. Drifting toward a new understanding, she sensed a shift, perhaps acceptance, beginning to crack the veneer of their long-held dynamic. As Sarah ended the call, her heart raced, her pulse pounding in her ears. She had taken the first step toward liberation, but there was still so much ground to cover. Could she endure the challenge ahead? Her resolve was palpable, yet uncertainty still lingered, whispering questions of self-worth and capability. Now, with her aspirations laid bare, the real journey beckoned, transforming those aspirations into a reality, pushing through resistance from within and without. Choosing the courageous path ahead, she anticipated the potential triumphs and trials of beginning her teaching career. Yet, deep down, a new concern swirled in her mind. What if her father turned his back if she failed to meet his expectations? That fear hung ominously, reminding her that true growth often demanded the confrontation of her deepest fears. With the phone resting heavily in her palm, she steeled herself for what lay ahead. The time had come to face not just her father, but all the internal battles that had led to this moment and the consequences they might hold. Days passed, each one stretching like a tightly wound coil, ready to snap at any moment. With the interview looming closer, the anticipation gnawed at Sarah, her mind ablaze with a mixture of excitement and dread. She found herself preparing meticulously, rifling through her notes, immersing in the educational theory she had brushed off while mainly focused on patient care. She was not just going to talk but prove her vision, the concept of bridging practical nursing experience with theoretical knowledge. Each preparation moment felt like reclaiming lost parts of herself. She sought out Patricia, drawn to her mentoress wisdom. "You've been where I am now," Sarah said during one of their sessions. "How did you shift your mindset from bedside nurse to educator?" Patricia leaned back in her chair, the sunlight filtering through the window casting a golden hue on her thoughtful expression. "It's about recognizing the value you bring to the table," she advised, her voice steadying the frantic whirlwind in Sarah's chest. "You must articulate your experiences in a way that illuminates your strengths, your unique perspective." Sarah absorbed the words, each one adhering to the inner framework of her resolve. "But what if they don't see my potential? What if they only see the years I spent as a nurse, not as a teacher?" Patricia smiled softly. "Understand that this is your opportunity to shape how they see you, not just how they categorize you. You're not just applying for a teaching position, you're bringing a wealth of experience that can change their approach to nursing education. Let your passion speak." That evening, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with a cup of lukewarm coffee, illuminating her notes with only a single bulb overhead. The shadows danced along the walls, echoing her doubts. She mapped out a lesson plan where clinical experiences intertwined with theoretical frameworks. Each line she wrote centered on her commitment to focus on balance, how to teach compassion alongside critical thinking. Yet doubt coiled tightly around the edges of her resolve, whispering unrelenting fears. Would the panel consider her innovative or inexperienced? A faint pulse of anxiety would creep in before she quickly squashed it. "No," she whispered to herself. "You are ready." On the day before the interview, she rehearsed in front of her bathroom mirror, her earnest reflection igniting flickers of confidence that began shattering the darker shadows hovering over her aspirations. The heartbeat of her voice filled the small space as she passionately articulated her philosophy on education, a blend of empathy and rigor, of healing knowledge that transcended textbooks. But just when she felt a surge of empowerment wash over her, an uninvited part of her mind surged forward. Images of her father flooded her thoughts, the skeptical tone, the ridicule masked as concern. A discord echoed in her heart. Could she truly inspire young minds when a voice she had once held so dear still doubted her? Through clenched fists, Sarah willed those intrusive memories away, recognizing they were not her reality, merely remnants of past inadequacies, distractions from her purpose. She needed to forge forward, driven by her convictions. Nestled in secure resolve, she made a conscious vow to walk into that interview not just as a hopeful candidate, but as the nurse, the mentor, and the woman she had spent years evolving into. A wave of adrenaline coursed through her as she transformed fragile doubts into solid preparation. Though fear lurked just beneath the surface, beckoning her to retreat, she silenced it with the truth she now embraced: she was here to teach, and she would command the respect she had long denied herself. As dawn broke on the day of the interview, she took a deep breath, holding it momentarily before exhaling it like a cleansing tide. Today would define her not just in the eyes of the interviewers but, more importantly, in her own. Walking toward the building, the air thick with potential, she recalled the lessons of resilience Patricia had instilled in her. This was her opportunity to illuminate the shadows of doubt, both inherited and self-imposed. In that moment, as she stood outside the venue, the prospect of the entry door loomed before her like a tangible threshold between her past and an uncharted future. Taking a step forward, she knew that success wasn't merely surviving the interview, it was confronting her past with courage. She was ready to embrace whatever lay beyond that door and finally confront not just the expectations of others but her own. And as she reached for the handle, a chilling realization gripped her: what if this was the least of her journey? When the door swung open, Sarah would need to confront the real challenges of teaching and revealing herself to students who would expect nothing less than authenticity, honesty, and self-growth. How would she navigate teaching, while wrestling with the specters of her past? The doors opened with a soft creak, and Sarah stepped into the brightly lit room, the overhead light shining down on a long table where the selection panel awaited. Her nerves buzzed, but she held her head high. Each member of the panel wore an expression that could either stoke her fears or spark the ember of determination burning within her. There was no way they could know of the turmoil she had faced to arrive at this moment. "Good morning, Sarah," a woman with sharp glasses greeted, cutting through her intense introspection. "Thank you for being here today." "Thank you for having me," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. As she took a seat, she fell into her rehearsed rhythms, recalling every piece of advice Patricia had bestowed. The first question came, focused on her teaching philosophy, and she felt an unexpected rush of energy. Leaning forward, she expounded on her blend of practical experience and theoretical foundations, gesturing emphatically. Each word left her lips, bolstered by passionate conviction. In her mind, Sarah reeled through her years as a nurse, recounting decisions made under duress, the empathy required for patient care, and how those raw experiences shaped her approach. She elaborated on how students would benefit from bridging empathy with rigorous inquiry. But as the interview progressed, a familiar voice from her past began to interject unwanted doubts. The effortless sarcasm of her father resurfaced, taunting her. "You can't even teach yourself. How can you teach others?" it sneered. For a moment, her heart raced, and she faltered, the rhythm of her thoughts disrupted. She felt the interview slipping, the eyes of the panel assessing her not as the candidate she had become, but as the uncertain girl he had always criticized. "Sarah?" A male panelist's voice broke through her haze. "Could you elaborate on a specific example from your experience that demonstrates your teaching style?" In that moment, Sarah realized she carried more than just her professional experiences. She bore the weight of the resilience that had been forged over the years. She cleared her throat and maintained eye contact with each panelist as if to anchor her truth. "During my nursing career, I once worked with a group of student nurses on a critical care floor. I realized the importance of guiding them while allowing their individual experiences to shape their learning." As she spoke, she tapped into the emotional landscape of that time, how she had held their hands through difficult moments, balancing instruction with support, imparting her knowledge while encouraging their growth. She vividly remembered the light of understanding in their eyes when they grasped a complex concept. "I teach by showing them the humanity behind the science," she finished, the words echoing richly with authenticity. A wave of relief washed over her as the panel exchanged thoughtful glances. She was speaking from a place deep within, a resounding affirmation of who she was. It was clear now that most of her self-doubt had been fueled by the echoes of past failures rather than the truth of her capabilities. But just as the conversation started to flow effortlessly, the next question struck like a thunderclap. "How would you handle a student who openly challenges your methods, especially given your background?" A challenge. A direct confrontation. Vulnerability washed over her once more as she was thrust into a personal dilemma. She had not imagined that even after shaking off the shackles of doubt, she would face this inherent challenge. Would she crumble under scrutiny or demonstrate the confidence she had tirelessly cultivated? The panel was watching, and this, she realized, was not just about defending her methods but also revealing her convictions. In that moment of silence, she recalled Patricia's wisdom and how she had navigated her own challenges. With a steadiness born of inner conviction, she said softly, "I welcome challenges. Questions keep us grounded and ensure we're delivering the best. To teach is to learn alongside my students. If they challenge me, it's an opportunity for growth for both of us." The panelists nodded slowly, reaction masked, yet there was curiosity in their eyes. Doubts flickered like shadows again, but rather than burying them, Sarah met them head-on. She understood that teaching would always be about leapfrogging over hurdles of uncertainty, discovering who she was in the complicated interplay of teaching and learning. As the interview drew to a close, Sarah felt exhausted yet exhilarated. She had come to face her fears and discovered her voice in an unexpected arena. The door between the past and the future might have been ajar, but she only realized the journey had just begun. Reclaiming her authority was merely the first step. Her true test lay ahead in the uncertain embrace of actual teaching, where the stakes would only get higher. And with that thought, a realization struck her: the world of academia was littered with challenges far beyond any interview. How would she cultivate respect amidst students demanding expectations while confronting the remnants of doubt each time she faced them? As Sarah left the interview room, eager anticipation mingled with the cold grip of uncertainty again. The true battle was just around the corner, waiting for the classroom's door to swing wide open. As Sarah walked away from the selection panel, an exhilarating mix of relief and anxiety surged through her. Each step felt like a leap into uncharted territory. She was not stepping into a classroom yet, but rather into an evolving sense of self, one that had begun shifting during that interview. Yet, the gnawing questions echoed in her mind like a metronome. How would her first class unfold? What if her students challenged her authority? She watched the polished floors beneath her feet, reflecting her duality, a stark contrast of professional ambition and personal scars. Would she be able to maintain that spark of confidence she had conjured? Arriving at her car, she inhaled deeply, clutching the steering wheel. The world outside buzzed with life, yet inside her, a storm brewed. Patricia's voice resonated, urging her to embrace every moment for its learning potential. But the cloying doubts crept back, taunting her failures. What if you're not cut out for this? What if you fail? Not wanting to succumb to the shadows of self-doubt, Sarah flipped through her mental notes, reflecting on her experiences. Her mind drifted back to the sleepless nights spent with her nursing students, the visceral emotions of joy and defeat that marked their journeys. Teaching was wrapped in humanity, it was intrinsically tied to connection. With renewed determination, Sarah prepared for potential challenges by drafting her lesson plans that afternoon. But this time, they felt different. Rather than following a strict outline, she infused her lesson materials with stories, personal anecdotes that could provoke discussions. What better way to build a bridge between her and her students than by sharing her authentic self? She envisioned her first class, picturing her students' faces, some eager, others apathetic. Each expression held a story. What she could harbor in her own narrative might ignite their passions or quell their doubts. This was not just about imparting knowledge, it was a mission to create a safe space where they could question, argue, and grow. As the days passed, Sarah's anticipation mixed with an unsettling anxiety. She sought refuge in her curated collection of educational theories, how they aligned with her own convictions. One evening, while browsing through her notes, Sarah's mind narrowed into focus. It wasn't just about the curriculum but about the relationships to foster genuine learning. The day of her first class arrived. As she strode into the room, her heart raced with a blend of excitement and dread. The faces before her were a tapestry of curiosity and skepticism. She introduced herself, feeling the heartbeat of collective uncertainty, unfamiliar yet strangely invigorating. "Let us talk," she began, her voice steadying, "about what makes a good teacher." The question hung in the air, an invitation rather than a declaration. The room erupted into a flurry of responses, students cautiously voicing their expectations. Each perspective was like a piece of a puzzle, they offered insights into what she needed to become. Sarah recognized the visceral power of engaging in dialogue, a challenge to open herself up to moments of vulnerability. But then, with a sharpness that startled her, one student leaned back and said, "But what if you're just not that good of a teacher?" Caught off guard, a ripple of discomfort coursed through her. Stunned silence filled the room. The challenge laid bare, reverberating against her resolve. There it was, the voice of her self-doubt made flesh. Taking a breath, Sarah felt the stirrings of her earlier confidence. This was it, her learning curve had just surged upward. She had a choice: retreat into defensiveness or confront the inquiry head-on. "I welcome that question," she replied, her voice more assured this time. "Let us discuss what makes someone effective, and perhaps we can discover what I can do to grow alongside you." In that moment, Sarah felt the edges of something remarkable beginning to form. As the class progressed, they delved into a lively discussion filled with perspectives, their thoughts flooding the room with energy. Sarah realized she was not just teaching them, she was learning from them as well, deepening the fabric of their connection. But amidst the exhilaration, an undercurrent of tension bubbled. How would she respond to their challenges in the future? And more significantly, could she sustain her resolve through the inevitable scrutiny that lay ahead? The bell rang, and her heart pounded a fierce rhythm as the students filed out. They had shared ownership in the creation of their learning environment, but Sarah's reflection was clouded with lingering apprehension. Was she truly ready for the volatility of tomorrow? As she gathered her things, a new awareness dawned. The classroom was not just a space for teaching but a crucible of dual growth. Stepping into the corridor, she caught sight of Patricia's reassuring smile across the room. Somewhere deep within her, the embers of self-belief flickered anew. Maybe this was not only about emerging from the shadows of the past, but rather about embracing uncertainty as a constant companion on her journey. Yet as she faced the night, the uncertainty loomed larger than before. Would her students embrace her, or would they brand her as a fraud? And as those questions lingered, Sarah's resolve tightened. She wasn't interested in just surviving the classroom, she was prepared to thrive within its confines, welcoming every challenge as it came. The days that followed Sarah's first class were steeped in both victory and trepidation. Each morning, she stood in front of the mirror, tracing her reflection with her eyes. A new version of herself emerged. This version was more resilient, yet the uncertainty shimmered like a veil around her. The exhilaration of engagement with her students was infectious, but her thoughts often spiraled back to that haunting question. Could she really stand up to their scrutiny? She punctuated her daily routine with meticulous planning, allowing moments of reflection to guide her next steps. The thrill of teaching had ignited a fire within her, but so did the fear that it could easily extinguish. Every lesson plan became a battleground for her self-doubt. In the quiet of her evenings, she would comb through her earlier notes, searching for the magic formula that struck a balance between authority and approachability. One afternoon, as she perused educational articles online, an unsettling realization washed over her. Her encounters with the students were not merely lessons on teaching, but a reflection of her own internal struggles. This was an opportunity not just to impart knowledge, but to confront her fears. She had always avoided conflict in her personal life. Now, her career demanded that she engage in it. As the week unfolded, Sarah noticed a shift in her interactions. In the next class, a student approached her after the bell rang, his brow furrowed with concern. "You seem really passionate, but what if your teaching style doesn't work for everyone?" The question hit her like a clap of thunder. Wasn't her heart in the right place? Yet, a stronger truth flickered in the back of her mind. Could the answer lie in vulnerability? "Let us explore that," Sarah offered, allowing her voice to soften. "How do you feel about different teaching styles?" Their conversation spiraled into an energetic debate, outlining preferences and experiences. The more she engaged, the more she realized the vulnerability she was willing to share opened doors for others. It was a dance of mutual respect, fortifying her awareness of how the equilibrium of teacher-student dynamics fluctuated. The class became a space not only for knowledge, but for questions, fears, and growth, both theirs and hers. Yet, as the classroom dialogue flourished, a specter of old insecurities still loomed over her. What if she faltered? What if her students lost respect and grew tired of her honest approach? Those thoughts shadowed her during her quieter moments, pulling her back into self-doubt. One evening, after an exhausting day, Sarah sought comfort in the familiar seclusion of her apartment. She picked up her journal, a new refuge for unfiltered thoughts. What does it mean to be a good teacher? She wrote, pouring her heart onto the pages. As she scribbled, echoes of similar questions bubbled to the surface. Can I balance authenticity with authority? The act of reflection became a catalyst for insight. She discovered that her struggles didn't define her, they informed her growth. In the depths of that realization, a surge of determination replaced her apprehension. Accepting vulnerability was her choice, and stepping outside her comfort zone was a risk that could reshape both her identity and her relationships with students. By the end of the week, the classroom felt more like a shared journey than a solitary fight for control. Her students challenged her, pushed boundaries, and ignited discussions that left everyone breathless with ideas. Each contribution became a piece of a complex puzzle they were all constructing together. Yet, amid this collective exploration, a pivotal moment crept closer. Sarah sensed a more direct confrontation was on the horizon. A few students had begun to whisper in low tones during discussions, casting shadows on her authority with snide remarks. The whispers varied, some questioning her strategies, while others conveyed open hostility. Could this be the moment where her willingness to be vulnerable could become a double-edged sword? Would she be able to confront those who saw her openness as a weakness rather than a strength? As the week drew to a close, Sarah's heart quickened with the understanding that the real test was imminent. The classroom dynamic was shifting. It could lead to innovation or chaos. Navigating the turbulence required profound courage, and she knew the path would not be easy. With a renewed resolve coursing through her veins, Sarah prepared for the next week, fully aware that embracing her authenticity might be the very challenge that could either liberate or consume her. Would she rise to meet it and harness the strength of both herself and her students? Would the tightrope of vulnerability yield unanticipated growth, or would it break beneath her feet? As shadows loomed larger, she realized she didn't just hold the responsibility of teaching, she was also crafting her own narrative. And soon, the real confrontation would come. How would she face it? The following week began with an air of tension thick enough to cut through with a knife. Sarah prepared obsessively. Lesson plans were meticulously structured, discussion points meticulously crafted. Yet, despite external organization, an internal storm brewed, one that rattled her focus and threatened to derail her efforts. Each student's face bore the weight of potential confrontation, and she felt their eyes pierce through her carefully curated confidence. As students ambled into the classroom, a peculiar energy surged among them. Whispers echoed through the desks, eyes darted with an electric charge of rebellion. Sarah felt her heart race, once again standing at the precipice of vulnerability. Today would be no ordinary lesson, she sensed the burgeoning resistance looming just beyond the classroom door. Today, we're going to tackle some real debates, she announced, her voice managing to mask her nerves. Let us discuss different perspectives. Life is too nuanced for just one truth. But as she spoke, she felt her own conviction waver. Were her words powerful enough to command respect, or just an invitation for dismissal? A student at the back raised a hand, sarcasm dripping from her tone. What's the point of this class, though? To hold hands and sing Kumbaya? Isn't learning supposed to challenge us? A ripple of laughter followed her remark, and Sarah felt her blood run cold. Could this be the moment where the tide truly turned against her? The laughter echoed in her mind like a rainstorm, but this time, she couldn't retreat into silence. Those whispers from the previous weeks had coalesced into a challenge she could no longer ignore. It's true that confrontation fosters growth, so why not begin here? Sarah voiced, her heart poundingly aware of the fine line she was walking. Tell me, what do you find valuable in challenging norms? She asked, leaning closer to her students, eager to harness their energy. She met the hostile gaze of the initial instigator, her fingers tingled with the need for connection over conflict. Surprisingly, the atmosphere shifted as students engaged, some in skepticism, others in curiosity. The energy sparked conversations, fiery exchanges igniting as opinions clashed and merged. Ideas whirled like autumn leaves in a gust of wind, and while Sarah was deeply invested in the discourse, the gnawing fear of losing control hung heavily above her. Yet, in that swirling chaos, a newfound sense of authenticity blossomed in her. It occurred to Sarah that struggling to remain an authoritative figure might actually hurt her ability to connect. You all have valid points. Why not create a rubric together for a constructive debate, she suggested, her voice steadier than before. With that one proposal, the classroom transformed. Students debated their own boundaries and perspectives while Sarah positioned herself not as an observer but as a co-participant in their intellectual journey. Their collective engagement gradually overshadowed the disruptive undertones that initially dampened the atmosphere. By the end of the class, Sarah felt the remnants of self-doubt dissipate like fog under the morning sun. Genuine conversations had replaced facades, and while not every student was fully satisfied, their discourse had wrapped her in an invisible thread of acknowledgement. However, as she closed the door behind the last of her students, apprehension clawed back into her consciousness. Would this strategic openness endure? Had she merely sown the seeds of discord, or had she planted the roots of resilience? In her solitude, gripping her journal tightly, she penned, "Did I confront with grace? Is my authority merely a reflection of what others want or what I can offer?" The uncertainty gnawed at her, promising yet another layer of introspection. As the week loomed large ahead, she felt a weight upon her soul, a deep-seated understanding that true growth would demand more than surface-level solutions. The following class would unveil whether the lessons transcended the classroom or merely resided within. Would she stand firm against the undulating waves of teenage skepticism, or would she find herself submerged in a tide of hostile intention? Even as she grappled with looming shadows, one thought punctured through the haze: the confrontation was only just beginning. Could she uncover her hidden strengths before the storm swept her away? As the new week dawned, Sarah stood before her class, the previous tension simmering in the air like an unspoken challenge. The mingled senses of anxiety and excitement churned within her. She had faced opposition, transformed mockery into dialogue, but the real test still awaited her: her ability to maintain not only a positive environment but her own integrity as an educator, a mentor, and a woman redefining herself. With a firm resolve, she greeted the students. "Welcome back, everyone. Today, let us discuss failure. What does it mean to you?" The air was charged, an electric anticipation sparking from the first moments. Veiled whispers had echoed from their previous lesson, and now it was time to unearth the truths buried within the engagement they had begun. The conversation quickly turned heated. Sarah listened intently as hands shot up, students eager to share their experiences. Each story became a piece of the larger narrative, an exploration of their vulnerabilities. With each anecdote, a sense of camaraderie blossomed in the room. They were no longer just students before her, they were voices shaped by struggle, much like her own. Yet, amid the continued unveiling of their thoughts, Sarah's mind drifted back to her father's voice, harsh and judgmental, threatening to seep into the foundations of her newly constructed identity. Could the discussions spark genuine understanding, or would they expose nuggets of uncertainty that could unravel her? "Failure is necessary," a thoughtful student finally offered. "You learn more from failing than succeeding. But it feels terrible." "Yes," Sarah interjected, her heartbeat steadying. "But what if failing meant you explored new paths? It can reshape you organically." The room's atmosphere shifted again, morphing from skepticism into an orchestration of shared reflections. They began to connect the dots, realizing that risks were not merely a pathway to rejection but a highway to growth. As they delved deeper, Sarah felt a new resilience blossom within her. The students, initially scornful, now embraced their vulnerabilities. Together, they began redefining failure not as an end, but as a vital component of the learning process. The rationalization brightened her spirit, revealing how her own failures could illuminate collective pathways. However, a singular moment jolted her from this forward momentum. One student, quiet and observant throughout the lesson, raised a hand. "But how do we trust our teachers to guide us when they're just as flawed? Are you sure this teaching thing isn't just to cover up for your inability to keep nursing?" Words fell like stones into the calm water of the lesson, sending ripples of discomfort racing through the room. These questions echoed her own inner conflicts. Air thickened with tension as the class turned their attention toward Sarah, their faces reflecting a mixture of curiosity and judgment. Trust is a two-way street, she replied, her voice steady. I'm learning alongside you. I can share my own failures, too. I've lost my footing in both nursing and life. But those moments don't define my capacity to teach. If anything, they afford me the opportunity to connect with you all more deeply. Silence ensued, and within that pregnant pause, Sarah decided to step into a level of vulnerability she had previously avoided. I struggled with whether I could be an educator at all. I wasn't even sure my capacity to teach was valid enough in the eyes of my family. But I've come to realize that the essence of teaching is understanding that it's not about perfection, it's about shared growth. Gradually, the atmosphere lightened. Curiosity replaced skepticism, invites for discussion flickered around the room, offering Sarah the respect she had feared she would never earn. Her answer had resonated, her truth had fortified her authority. That day, the ebb and flow of discussion helped develop not only their understanding of failure but an acceptance of the teacher-student dynamics that perpetually needed nurturing. With newfound confidence, Sarah engaged with the class. Beyond mere instruction, she embraced the complexities of their emotional landscapes, learning just as much from them as they absorbed from her. After class, Sarah closed the door behind her, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration flooding her veins. The forthcoming challenges remained, yet as she gathered her belongings, a warm glow surged from within. She was growing, evolving in sync with her students. Their voices had never merely dictated her journey, they had become intertwined with her narrative. As days turned into weeks, Sarah's self-identity found solid ground. Each class brought a deeper understanding of connection and taught her to confront not only her students' challenges, but also her own. By embracing transparency, she inspired their growth, and in turn, they helped reshape her perceptions. This journey through uncertainty, doubt, and courage had transformed Sarah into a figure of authority, not through rigid expectations, but through her willingness to be both vulnerable and strong. Her potential as an educator blossomed, established through the real bonds she forged and the challenges they navigated together. Instead of showing students what she knew, she illuminated how they all could learn from each other. Every lesson reflective of this shift strengthened Sarah's resolve, turning each interaction into a constant source of affirmation. If she could face her familial doubts with courage, perhaps she could likewise stand strong, resolute in her worth and place in this world. Weeks later, Sarah received an email too significant to overlook praise and recognition for her exceptional performance as an instructor, the college's first annual Teaching Excellence Award. As she read it, tears of relief streamed down her face, not because of the accolade itself, but as a testament to her growth. She had not only conquered the professional obstacles ahead but had redefined her identity and challenged her past. The distance from that kitchen battlefield was immense, she had ultimately reclaimed her voice. Sarah could now navigate her path with confidence, leaving behind the shackles of familial expectations and steps onto firm ground, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. Today, she found herself not simply as a nursing educator, but as a beacon of triumph over adversity, a powerful example for her daughter and her students alike. Now, as the time has come to embrace your own transformation, remember every moment matters. Will you step into your own growth? Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others who need to hear this message. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, we want to hear your insights. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to take action, don't wait even one more second to support this journey of personal overcoming.